It's a great honor for me to have here all the way from Austin, Texas, the US of A, Donn LeVie. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here to talk about influence and leadership and all those good things.
Yeah, you just told me also in the US of A, in Texas, it's also very hot. Also in the Netherlands, we're in an oven right now. So we're kindred spirits.
There we go.
We have also something similar. We have the greatest, I don't know, one of the greatest pandemics ever, except for the one 100 years ago. But right now we're in a big crisis and we're looking to the US of A to lead us. And you're all about leadership. Businesses in the Netherlands are going down, a lot of bankruptcies. And my question to you is, how can we prosper in these hard times? What are we to do? Help us.
Well, it's interesting that prior to February of 2020, the top 5 leadership issues all evolved around business-related issues. The increasing use of artificial intelligence, diversity and inclusion, things like that. But after February of 2020, the top 5 leadership issues, according to DDI, which is a global leadership outsourcing company, they determined that after speaking to thousands of leaders across many companies, that leadership resilience is good. Leaders are going to have to convey resilience in these hard, difficult times in the pandemic. They're going to have to build mutual trust with employees, because employees are concerned, do my employers, do my leaders, are they really concerned about my well-being and my family's well-being? And they also want their leaders to make sure that they understand their virtual environment working needs, those work from home needs. So the shift has gone from understanding the hard business core aspects of challenges for leaders to soft skills. And it's the empathy, it's the resilience, it's a concern for the employees, it's to make sure that they have the equipment that they need to do their work at home. So there's a shift, and that means there's going to be a shift in leadership thinking as well. If you want your best employees to stick with you, you have to be upfront and empathize and reaffirm with them that you have their best interests at heart moving forward.
But shouldn't this be the case also before the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's never in front of you until it's actually put in front of your face. This is the way a lot of companies have been shifting over the years. That any potential candidates that are fast tracking to the C-suite, they need to have the soft skills to be able to engage, position, influence, and convert others to their prospects, their ideas, their proposals. And that type of a process helps create allies, champions, clients, customers, whatever you need.
So what's lacking right now in the leadership domain?
In the leadership domain, the type of training has typically been focused on the left brain, which is the hard structured ways to do things. And Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, he said that is not the way to go. If you want leaders to change and to develop employees, you can't do one and done training, which means sign up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at the end of the day, you're done with your leadership training. This type of training, this emotional intelligence and influential intelligence training, requires repetition, hands-on guidance from mentors or coaches, and it's long-term. You can't turn an aircraft carrier around in a day, and you cannot adjust leadership personalities in a day. It takes months of repetition and hands-on training.
So what are some of these soft skills that you talk about? I have a vague idea, but I want to hear it from you.
Soft skills is being able to listen. That's one. Having a clear mind and an open mind to listen to people's concerns before coming up with a solution. And that's always been a problem with leadership. They'll come into a meeting with a pre-assigned agenda and expect everyone to buy in, check the box, so to speak. That's no longer a viable option. Leaders also need to have the empathy we mentioned earlier. They need to have even a sympathetic ear in some places, but mostly the empathy, and to be able to relate on a professional level with their subordinates and even their peers at a more relatable level.
But you also talk about, and that's one of my favorite things that I love about a great leader. You know, I love those American movies where they have the leader who makes a speech and everybody's passionate, go to war, yeah. I would love to see this here, but you don't see that a lot in the Netherlands. But the inspiring leader, the one who sets the example, that's what I long for. Do you also talk about that? Do you also do those kind of training?
And that's a good point, Alex, because when you look at the speeches of Churchill during World War II and FDR during World War II, there was such powerful rhetoric to lead the British people, the American people through those difficult times. They had to rally around the words of those leaders. And crisis leadership is a lot different than crisis management. And in times like these, you need someone who has a strong rhetorical force, who can find the right words and the right passion at the right level and present that to the people of their country.
So why do you think that leaders don't do that? Because they also they watch the same movies that I do.
Yes.
Am I the only one that gets inspired by the Independence Day speech?
Yeah, that was a very good speech. I remember that movie too. Yeah. And it's partly speech writers. Presidents always have speech writers. Winston Churchill pretty much wrote his own speeches. So he had a powerful command of the language. He had a powerful command of the type of emotional rhetoric that'll get people to strive to move forward through the fog, as they say.
So I don't know how is it in America with this kind of leaders, because I mentioned the American movies. Is this like a false does it give me a false sense of there is better leadership in America? How is this in normal corporate life?
Yeah, I think that it kind of depends on what sliver of the economy or business you're looking for. Politics, you know, Americans are very cynical about their politicians, and there's an old joke here that says, "How can you tell when a politician is lying?" Well, his lips are moving, and that seems to be true as we get into the election season too.
Yes, I'm watching every step of the way, so I fully am aware what's going on now. These are very exciting times.
Yes.
So let's get back to the charismatic leader. How do you become a charismatic leader? Because every leader wants the people to love them, to listen to them, and that the people are inspired, that they act upon what they teach or what they suggest. How do you do that?
Everybody's watching them. That's the key, is they watch them to see if the actions match the words. And the whole idea about charisma or powerful leaders with presence is that it's not a suit you put on in the morning and take off at night. It is part of who you are, that personality. Take a look at, I can give you some examples of politicians. Mitt Romney, when he was running for president, he had the personality of a board. And people didn't gravitate to that because a lot of the ability to motivate and mobilize voters is likability. And, you know, most people, they don't weigh the issues deeply. They'll vote for the person they like the most.
True.
And I think that's probably a little less so in this coming election. However, I think people are looking at the issues deeper. But it's like a presence is like what I refer to it as a warm summer breeze. You can't see the breeze, but you see the effect it has on clothes hanging on the laundry line, the wind rustling through the trees, the leaves blowing down the street, things like that. That's just like presence. You can't really define it or touch it, but you know it when you see it because you see the effect it has on the surrounding environment.
That's true.
And a strong presence-driven leader has a strong positive effect on the surrounding environment.
So can such a leader be made, or is such a leader born?
I think that I'm going to answer and say yes. I think a little bit of both will go a long way. But when I tell people there's a myth about getting hired that says, you know what, we hear this all the time. It's who you know. That's how you get hired. Well, it's who you know who likes you. Because if you're still a jerk, doesn't matter who you know. People know you're a jerk, you're not going to get hired. But if it's who you know who likes you, if they like you, that opens doors. So I think part of your personality has to be authentic and true. And people are very good at seeing through inauthenticity in candidates and in leaders and things like that.
On a subconscious level, maybe.
Yes,
To
yes.
pick up on the discrepancies. So let's talk about, let's see, the leadership influence. You're working on 2 great books right now. How do you see the world? How do we go forwards with this leadership? Because I'm trying to find out, and I'm trying. So how to become a better leader? Yeah, you have to be authentic. But what else? You have to come across well spoken. Words have to resonate. What else?
I think that a presence-driven leader knows how to engage other people and make them feel like the most important people in the room. And with that engagement, you build familiarity, you build trust, and you build likability even before you meet those people. That's one of the hallmarks of one of my programs is engage decision makers on their social media channels. That way they get to know you. They get to get a familiarity with who you are and the kind of things that you either like or you respond to posts on. And it builds a familiarity, likability, so that when they see your name, your image, or your picture, or they'll recognize, oh, that's the guy who keeps contacting me and responding to my blog, or that's the young woman who has always something insightful to say on my LinkedIn posts.
Yeah.
So the more frequently you do that engagement, it closes the distance gap between you and the other decision maker.
So you frame it in such a way that they already like you before they meet you.
Yes, exactly. Before they've met you. That leads into positioning. Once you get a direct, an opportunity for a direct engagement with another leader or a decision maker, you've already got that familiarity, and that allows you to better position your branded value and expertise when you already have your foot in the door with likability, trust, and familiarity.
So when you talk about your positioning, your personal branding, are you talking about that? Like you as a person, who you
branding.
are?
Yes.
So
personal branding.
How do you do that without boasting?
You do it like, here's how you do that. You do it without boasting by asking, how can I help you today? What problems can I help you solve today? You want to come across as a trusted advisor, not somebody with their hand out looking for a job or looking for a contract or looking for a proposal to be accepted. It's always the trusted advisor position, like, how can I help you today? Tell me what's your most difficult problem and how can I help you?
So how do you come across when you do that you're not you're not in it for something else?
Right. Because we're all problem solvers. We all work for ourselves.
That's true.
Because it doesn't matter where your paycheck comes from. If you don't do your job, you don't work. You don't have a job. One of the things I teach when people are doing either virtual one-on-ones or in-person one-on-ones is you have to know what questions to ask those other people, especially in negotiations with maybe other companies, maybe at the leadership level, you're having business conversations. Most people in such a situation, when another decision maker asks them, do you have any questions of me? And when I was a hiring manager, the questions I got were along those lines. Well, Donn, do you have any questions of us here? And the wrong answers are, when do I get 3 weeks vacation? When do my options vest? And do you have a work at home policy? Those are the wrong questions to ask, because they're looking for more information from you subtly. How are you going to help them? And so one of the questions I learned to early in my career is whenever a decision maker would ask me, So do you have any questions of me? And I would ask them, can you explain to me or describe your top priority project you have and how you and I would work together to resolve it? And what I'm doing is I'm placing that decision maker and me in the future working together. I've planted a seed in their mind that and they're just going off giving me a narrative. But nonetheless, I have planted a seed in their mind that I and that decision maker are working together.
Yeah. And how would my
It
best
doesn't,
qualities help further along the project? Something like that.
yeah, and how do you see us
Yeah.
adding more value to that
Yeah.
project, maybe
Yeah.
at the next phase?
Yeah.
And
I love it.
and if you've really got a lot of
Cojones.
fortitude, yeah, if you've really got a lot of, I don't watch what I'm saying here, a lot
Yeah,
of
I know.
fortitude, your next question can be, well, I don't have any other questions. Is it too early to find out when we can start? And I've done that before.
Yeah.
And sometimes that decision maker will say, well, we're still looking at other candidates. Or if they're impressed enough, they may say, well, I don't need to talk to anyone else. How about in 2 weeks? Or how about in 4 weeks? Or how about you team come back together and we'll finalize the negotiations? I'm sold.
You're talking about
But you
also
have to,
being really bold and being
it's being
certain.
bold, but you have to know, is it safe for me to take that step as I move forward through my conversations?
Of course, that's
Yeah,
the emotional intelligence that you need to have, because you're
yeah,
already
yeah,
during the
exactly.
conversation you're already building on the relationship and you're already planting
Yeah,
seeds all the way.
yeah,
If you want, but you can do this with anybody during any
absolutely.
conversation, during a selling conversation. It's not about just selling. It's always about planting seeds and let the other people come to the conclusion themselves. And it's
Yes,
also with the leaderships, also with the inspiring speeches. Like you said, also was if you take the time to know the people that work for you, it doesn't have to be a long time. You can have a chat for 5 minutes and remember and just be very engaging and don't stay superficial.
right,
And
right.
also use the eye contact. And what I also do is just, well, also with me with the interviewing, I'm very inquisitive about people. And well, my weakness is that I always go too far too soon, because I like the deep stuff, the deep conversations.
Mhm.
But usually it also makes it that you have a very deep connection very fast. So you're not like just passing by.
There's a famous American motivational speaker and author. His name was Zig Ziglar. And he had a very famous saying that said, and this is true for leaders everywhere, in the Netherlands, in the Canada, in the US, anywhere. People don't know how much you care. Let's see, no, I got it wrong now. It's people don't know how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So the whole checklist, left brain leadership style, that went out in the 1990s. If there are companies still operating that way, they are not doing their shareholders and their stockholders value by leadership in that style. I've always been a fan of leadership by walking around. Just get out of your office, walk the halls, talk to people. You don't have to go out and have a beer with them after work. That's a little too familiar from a hierarchy structure. But show them that you have a concern, learn something about them, and understand the work they're doing. And all those little things really help elevate their commitment to the organization.
Well, the big secret is that if you engage your employees and you give them interest and you make them feel worthwhile, they'll do everything for you. No, not everything, but go that extra mile for you to make you get to or the company to a higher place. If you
Yes.
don't do that and you just go, oh, you haven't done that today, or you need to do it like this, that's no fun at all. You get a disengagement. But if you just invest a little bit about being liked, people will go the extra mile for you. And I think a lot of managers and leaders forget about that crucial part.
I totally agree 100%. 100%. I have a funny story about this whole psychology of language and behavior patterns to open doors for you. One time I was a guest at a client appreciation event in Las Vegas, Nevada over New Year's. And we were out there, there's a group of 12 of us. We're out there at the Top Golf, which is the flagship golfing amusement park, kind of. And later that afternoon, the entire C-suite for MGM Resorts came out to meet us. And the vice president of worldwide sales came up to me, and we exchanged business cards. And he said, "So Donn, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, here's an opportunity for me to build on a conversation." And I said, "Meeting planners and conference coordinators hire me to help them look like superstars." And he kind of stopped and looked at me, and guess what his next question was? "How do you do that?" And then I gave him my value proposition, which was my keynotes and workshops not only push your ROI for your conference through the roof, but I also push the return on overall event further than you could believe, because my programs have 30-day follow-up for all your attendees. And the guy put his head back. He called over the other vice presidents. He goes, "Guys, come over here. You got to talk to Donn." So when they came over, this vice president I was speaking with said, "Donn, tell them exactly what you told me." And so after I said that to the other vice presidents, I started asking them questions. "Have you guys been having trouble with your sales teams?" "Well, yeah, a little bit. This was about 4 years ago." He says, "Yeah, we've had some ups and downs, roller coaster type of sales." And so I just asked them a lot of questions. I didn't try to sell them a program. I didn't try to sell them a keynote. I didn't try to sell them a workshop. I came off as a trusted advisor by asking questions of what could I possibly do to help you. And I got a lot of work out of it, but I didn't ask for it. They asked, "Can you come out? Can you come out here and train our sales teams?" I said, "Yeah, I'd be happy to." The very next night, we had dinner at a different resort and casino in Las Vegas. I got seated next to the vice president of sales. "So Donn," he says, "what is it that you do?" I said, my programs help sales professionals just like you improve the sales team records. And he goes, "Well, how do you do that?" And I gave him the same answer. It's the same question. It's all about extending a conversation. If I had just said, "Well, I'm a professional speaker and I do corporate training," that wouldn't have gone anywhere. That would have been a dead end
Boring.
conversation. Yeah, exactly. So I always think of an opening that will pique their interest to make them ask me, "How do you do that?"
So what do you say to the people who are like, "Yeah, I don't want to come off as being," how do you say that in English? Like patting myself on the back.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you just temper it. Usually the first statement is something that piques a conversation. I have a friend of mine who I taught this to. He was in one of my seminars, and he was a corporate security person. And one person, he wrote to me and he said, "I had a TV reporter ask me what it is that I do," and he said, "I keep my clients out of jail." And she goes, "How do you do that?" And then he explained what his job is with corporate security. And it was a hilarious conversation that he had with this reporter, but it got him on TV where he could, speak to his profession and what value he brings to clients and customers.
Yeah, and don't forget, a lot of people in corporates are very bored because of the same lunches, same speeches, the same. We got to look at the numbers. Okay,
Yeah.
what the shareholders value. Very boring. So I would think be the fun part of the day for other people.
That's a great way to look at it, Alex. I like that. Be the fun part of the day for somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't used to be this way, but right, yeah, I slowly got into it because I realized it's all about also having fun. So I'm also very fast. I'm very familiar because a lot of people, they have a sort of a distance between each other. But I like to just act familiar. It's the same way that you talked about presence.
Yes.
Talk to people like as if you already know them, and they'll get comfortable immediately. So
That's exactly right. And
yeah.
it's funny because you can read body language of people who are uncomfortable, even just starting a conversation with a stranger.
Yeah.
I've never had that problem. As a matter of fact, when I was a little boy in kindergarten, I was designated the class hugger. So when all the kids came into school, I was always at the door giving everybody a hug. I mean, I could talk to anybody, And this whole COVID-19 thing is killing me because I'm a hugger by nature. It's difficult to live through.
These are new times. No more hugging.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Also, in the Netherlands, it was said that you shouldn't give, and it's a Dutch custom to, when greeting, give 3 kisses. Do not do that anymore because it's not of these times.
Yeah.
So that's terrible for also for the children. I heard they got songs to keep distance, and it's terrible, I think.
Yeah.
We're learning about keeping distance, no contact. People are dangerous. So how do we go about this? Because we're in a new time and people are acting more hostile towards each other. Maybe on a subconscious level, but also with greeting. Okay, can't greet, have to do the elbow thing, do something else. How can we be human? How can we just keep that connection whilst having this really strange defense mechanism also activated? How do we bypass this?
I think realizing that this whole strange pandemic is influencing our emotions and our attitudes to some degree. But at the same time, we have to balance that with, we are all going through this at the same time. We're all dealing with the same hardships and difficulties and inconveniences and challenges to what's the new normal going to look like. I think we have to learn to balance those and put them in the right perspective.
That's difficult because a lot of people are very fearful. I'm very skeptical about all the data that I hear. I like to look at data myself. And also in the Netherlands, the Dutch people just lost a case against the government, whereby the government does not need to show any proof or any data, just have to trust the government. So I'm very skeptical, but a lot of people trust the government, everything, and they're really, really scared.
Yeah, I can understand. And it's also, how the media portrays data.
Yeah.
The one thing that was getting a lot of people frightened in March was that one graphic all the news stations had, the cable news stations, of the map of the world in black and those giant red dots representing, percent of population. And people who don't understand how to read that data, they freak out when they see a red dot the size of Europe, covering all of Europe. They don't know how to handle that. So I think the media tends to sensationalize the data by the way they portray it graphically.
So I know that, but what if I have a team that's scared? And what I notice is that it's very difficult to put people at ease because they say, no, it's all doom and gloom and horrible. There's another lockdown coming. How do you keep the morale high?
I think one of the things you can do as a leader is show that resilience, that despite the times of challenge and reorganization and readjustment, we have, as a leader, you have to assume that position and posture of nothing, being bulletproof and Teflon proof, so that we will get through this. We have to focus on what's in front of us and what we know, not what we don't know. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have a difficult time differentiating between what we know and what we don't know, and then what's rumor or what I read on the internet. We watch the Weather Channel quite a bit, and I haven't argued with the TV in about 3 weeks watching the Weather Channel, except for the fact that it's been hot. Yeah. But I just think that feeding into the news feed, the 24-hour cycle news is harmful to people's emotional and their psyche all combined to trying to deal with these issues, and that then trickles down to interfering with, if they're still working, are they doing a good job?
So this is so difficult because in the past you can walk by employees and just have this chit chat, but now it's almost all is remote working. So how do you keep up morale? The things I see in the Netherlands that they have things like a pop quiz to boost morale. I think that should be done a lot more than the occasional pop quiz. It's like, okay, what can we do to talk a little about, talk to each other? Let's ask random questions, things like that. But I think they should be doing much more than that. What are your ideas?
It's a good distraction. It's a very good distraction, and it gets people to, especially when the pop quizzes, I've seen those here too, especially when the pop quizzes are little game show type things, focus on some characteristic of someone in the office, something positive, like, who do you know in the office that was a former soccer player, who played soccer in Europe, football, and or who do you know who played in a band and opened for Jimi Hendrix? Well, I did back in 1968. And so a lot of people don't know
Really?
that. So it
Just I
gets
had to
people.
mention it.
Yeah, I did. I had to get that
Okay,
in. I
you
still
should be
play too.
proud. Should be proud. It's great.
Yeah, I am. But it gets people distracted from the distractions, and it almost brings a moment of levity to the workplace, which is so essential right now.
Yeah, but I also think you need more like those inspiring talks by a leader. There needs to be more of them. Maybe they should do it with a blog that you can have a message. So not that you have to watch live, because otherwise it's just another meeting.
Oh yeah,
But
exactly.
just be more visible. And I think a lot of CEOs or managers, they're not used to it being so out in the open, just manage stuff. But now you truly have to inspire your employees. So
Yeah,
I think make with the phone, flip phone, make videos. Like this is how it's going. Stay tough. I know it's hot inside. I know about it. Just
yeah.
send your employees something fun. I don't know, to
I
go
think
through the
that's
hot
good.
days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
informal on the phone
yeah,
is good, and hearing from the C-suite, managers, directors, even if it's just a 1 minute video,
right.
that goes a long way to help moderate the dampen the emotional highs and lows throughout the day.
Because other people, I think they need your certainty. It's like I have two
Yeah,
daughters, 7 and 9. If something's up and I don't trust it, like maybe we're outside, maybe I think there's an accident waiting to happen, and I go into full panic mode, they panic. They look at me and then they panic.
yeah,
I have to stay calm and collective and act certain, and then they'll also be all right. But I think the same is in the workforce. When I have
yeah.
employees and I go like, oh, we're not going to make it, they start
Yeah.
to freak out.
That emotional transference is
Yeah.
so true. I think you hit on a very important point, that a lot of times especially the younger workforce, they will look to the senior leaders for their reaction to things.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great analogy.
So are leaders aware of that? That they have
Oh, I think
such
they
a
are.
gigantic, because they have a very big role. It's also, if I have an employee, my expectation of that employee matters a lot. All if it's subconscious to me, if I think, oh, he won't do it or she won't do it, I'll translate it subconsciously.
Yeah.
So
I think some of that happens, but I think that uh, a good leader who can establish resilience and build trust with that workforce, I think on a regular basis, they should ask, what is preventing you from reaching your objectives right this week? What is in your face right now that's stopping you from moving forward, or personally or professionally? What can I do to help you remove these obstacles?
yeah,
And to let them know that you're there to clear the path for them as best as you can is another way to help keep that the resilience in leadership and in the workforce at good levels.
yeah, then you're on the you show that you're on the same team, and that's very
Yes,
important,
exactly.
because
Yep.
otherwise the employees are just like, okay, I'm going to be judged. Oh no.
Yeah.
But if you can, yeah, just be there for them. Okay, so what's stopping you? Because
Yeah, it's that
maybe,
trusted advisor.
yeah, maybe the employees have some thoughts that aren't real. Yeah, I'm afraid this and this will happen, and then you can, with just once, usually with people, just one sentence, you can change an entire paradigm, and then
Absolutely. And
the
it's
problem just go away.
a lot of it is cultural. How fast that aircraft carrier turns around in 180 degrees. A lot of it is cultural. I've been trying
True.
to get some corporate opportunities in Czech Republic, and there's still a strong carryover from that old communist regime, the thinking in corporations. Like, you have to visit them several times in order for them to get to know you. Your reputation won't precede you. you have to really develop relationships before you can even get in and start working. So it's some of those cultural obstacles are difficult to overcome.
Well, if they hang around long enough, we might go back to socialism here in
Yeah,
Europe. So I hope
yeah,
not.
I hear you.
Yeah, true. So please inspire us. Tell us more. You're writing 2 books. We want to know.
I have a long time. I actually found a quote from a politician from back in the 50s, Adlai Stevenson. I think it was the Adlai Stevenson III, who said, "You can't lead a cavalry charge if you think you look funny sitting on a horse." And just that whole image, I started laughing when I saw that. And what it means is if you don't feel and believe that you have the presence to be a strong leader, don't get up on that horse and lead that cavalry, because they will run you over on the charge. So you have to have that self-assurance. So the book will be on presence. And the other book I'm working on is called The Higher You Climb, the Harder It Is to Hold On. Because as you go up the corporate ladder, different kinds of priorities come into play, different kinds of relationships come into play. You're no longer managing people, you're managing the future revenue goals of the company. So everything shifts. And I think we'll probably have one of those books by the end of the year and the other one sometime early next year.
So why are you writing 2 books at the same time? Are you so prolific?
Well, I've written.
I feel lazy right now.
I'm a writer because I have to be, not because I want to be.
Okay.
So I do a lot of writing. Yes, I do. And I've got some more books on the back burner, but they'll have to wait.
Next 2 are in 2022.
Yeah, something like that.
So talk to us a little bit more about presence, because I'm very interested about that. It's be in the now. Are you talking about that kind of presence?
That's part of it. The other part is I've actually asked a number of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 leaders I've had relationships with, and I said, let me ask you, what's the one thing you look for that's outstanding in a potential leader? And most of them had either the words charisma or presence. And so when I would ask them, well, what is charisma? What is presence? And they would tell me, presence is a feeling someone else gives off by the way they move through a room, the way they interact with people in social and professional situations. But it's not something they claim, it's something other people who observe it, they give them that. Just like we mentioned earlier about the influencer and thought leader. I did a seminar once for about 300 execs. And I said, how many people in here consider themselves a thought leader? And one person raised their hand. Yeah, one person. And I said, well, explain to me how you consider yourself a thought leader. And she said, well, from all these things that I've done. And so then I asked the question again. I go, okay, how many people in this room have been called a thought leader? And then, half their arms went up in the room. And then the person who raised her hand first, she understood then what I was getting at. Like, you can't call yourself a thought leader justifiably. That doesn't show how much humility.
That's true.
But when I said, how many people have been called an influencer? How many people have been called by others a thought leader? Hands went up. Those are the leaders you want, the ones who were reluctant to raise their hand, even when other people call them thought leaders. So that's another sign of presence, is that other people have noticed you've got something special. Not, we've noticed that you call yourself someone special. It's totally different.
But how do you do this? Because the people are watching. They say, I want to be a thought leader. I want to be able to raise my hand.
Okay, I'll give you my 7 or 8 rules here for going to thought leader and influencer status. Number 1 is you have to take a position on an issue that's facing your profession or your industry. You either have to be a proponent for that issue and take it to the next level, or you have to be an antagonist, someone who's against that and run with it the other direction, because that's what creates a tension. If there's something going on in your industry or your profession that you do not like, don't just disagree, get out there and be a vocal opponent of it. And then you'll have people following you and listening to you and reading what you have to write. The other thing is, can you capture in a graphic what your big idea is? Can you draw it so that people instantly see what your big idea is? Or do you need a long, lengthy, verbose explanation? Because you'll lose people if that's what it is. If you can draw it, and people will instantly recognize what your big idea is.
Well, let's start at, you have to have a big idea.
Yeah, you have to have a big idea. And that
Yeah.
big idea might be being a proponent of that issue or being an opponent of it. And if you can draw it and draw contrast between this is the status quo and why it's wrong, this is where it needs to go, and put it in a graphic, people will understand it and gravitate to you quicker because they process illustrations about 1,000 times faster than they do all the words.
That's true. I should make more drawings.
Yeah. Can you create your own quotations? I always tell people thought leaders, thought followers, people who follow the thoughts of other people. Thought followers quote from the interesting lives of others. Thought leaders lead interesting lives that other people quote from. That's my quote.
Do you have a system for me to so I can generate more quotes? Because I lack quotes.
Yes.
I talk a lot,
yes.
but I forget a lot also. So
yes, I actually have a methodology that I in one of my classes. I have a influencer and thought leader masterclass. It's a 2-day class for senior executives, how to get them into that thought leader, influencer, thin air at the top of the profession, you know. And one of the things that people do is you take a common quotation and change the words, change the order, envision it with maybe a different perspective. That's one way. And I actually have a little worksheet that I go through that that takes people through a couple of quotations from original quotations from celebrities or famous people in the past. And then we break it down phrase by phrase, and after 4 or 5 iterations, they've got their own new quotation.
Just borrow and adjust.
Borrow and adjust, you know. And then what is it they say? If you're going to steal someone else's work, you say, as someone once famous said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. So, but then I'm coming with my own quotes. So how can I sneak my quotes in there? Because or otherwise I'm going to talk to somebody next to me, and I'm going to say my quote, and then I hope he picks up on the quote and quotes me.
No,
How do you do that?
Yeah, you can't be as obvious as that. I say, look, one of the things I teach my classes is this. One of the things that I tell my clients is this, and that way it's conveyed that it's yours. You don't have to tell people that this is my quote.
That's a nice one.
But there's I have a worksheet that I take people through. There's another one too. Is let's see. What kind of intellectual property do you have? Are you writing articles? Are you writing books? Are you speaking at conferences? Are you doing workshops at conferences? What are you doing to build your brand?
Yeah.
And building your brand is part of becoming a thought leader and an influencer.
Yeah, and a lot of people are afraid to speak up, or they think I don't have anything to say. But it's also about what is you don't have to have a brand new idea, because that's difficult, but you can also have your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, because we're all unique individuals. You grew up a certain way. You have your views. That's you see on YouTube, all the reaction videos. Just talk about how you see the problem, and it will resonate, because the fact that you're speaking about it will resonate with other. Yeah, well, maybe not if it's that crazy, but it will resonate if you give your advice. So don't be afraid to give your opinion on things, because that's also a thing. Like the first thing you said, people need to take a stance. Well, a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, but then I'm going to lose half the audience.
Yeah, well, you'll gain a new audience.
Yeah, maybe you'll lose half, but the half that remains will be much stronger. Because otherwise you're just one of the people. You're just another speaker, or you're just another manager.
Yep.
Oh, this is the manager. And I always think, have people make sure that they can tell a story about you?
Yeah, stories are going to be important. Can you tie in your big idea with a story?
Yeah,
Because people gravitate to stories. People gravitate to facts wrapped up in a story. They'll remember it a lot quicker and a lot easier and for longer than just memorizing, bare facts. If you wrap that in a story, they'll remember that for a long time.
that's true.
The importance of being contrary or being a proponent of, I like being a contrarian. I'm by nature contrarian.
Me too.
Because everybody flows the same way. You're just swimming with the stream with the other fish. But the fish that wants to go upstream when everyone's going downstream, he's going to get the attention.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I have to temper that a little bit. But I take the contrarian
Yes.
position because a lot of people don't like to have, heated discussions, but I love heated discussions. So I'm like, okay, bring it. So, but I have to temper because not everybody's waiting for that.
Exactly.
But to me, it's fun because I like the discussion. I like the disagreement. To me, I'm not married to my idea. So I like it when other people have different viewpoints and maybe can teach me. So I'm always open to other people.
That's good. That's good. I agree.
That's why I love it. I don't want to ram my ideas through that throat, but I always want to know, why do people think the things they think? Because maybe I just missed something.
Yeah.
So be very inquisitive. And also another one is you have great anagrams. Your EPIC anagram. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. EPIC stands for engage, position, influence, and convert. Those are highly valued properties of a strong, presence-driven leader. They know how to engage other people. And we talked about this earlier about engaging decision makers in the social media platforms and channels that those people are involved in, because you're creating that connection of familiarity, likability, and trust. And usually that happens at a pre-engagement phase. In other words, you haven't really met face-to-face. You may be just corresponding via social media. The P stands for positioning. And once you get an opportunity to meet face-to-face or virtually with someone, you can better establish your position and your authority, because you've already made the connection with a familiarity, likability, and trust. And as you go into a post-engagement phase, like most negotiations, they have 3 phases: pre-engagement, direct, post-engagement. Post-engagement phase is when you can continue with your influence with decision makers. I use the example of someone being interviewed for a job. Most of the time, after you've had your interview with a decision maker or a hiring manager, most people stop promoting their expertise. There's no rule and no law that says you cannot keep promoting the social value of your expertise. And I have a method I call the Trojan horse technique that gets people to the top of the decision list at the end of the hiring process. And it's a sneaky trade-off from the Trojan horse myth, where it wasn't the Trojan horse that was a gift. The surprise was inside the horse. And that's what this technique teaches. The surprise is in after the decision makers receive more social proof of your value. And the I is the influence, because you're still trying to influence that either hiring decision, buying decision, contract position. And then at the end, I have a document called the 25 ways I add value to your company. And I listed out 25 ways I added value. And I used this document back in the 1980s when I was in the oil business. And there was someone who was competing with me for a directorship of a large oil company. He had more experience than I did, but just before they made the hiring decision, I sent this hiring manager this document. And I said, here's 25 ways I will add value to your company. And I got the hire because the hiring manager told me, you already told me how you're going to add value to my company. I didn't know how well this other candidate would have done. So that's why I got the offer. I got into that. Yeah, I got into his head and I said, I know what you want. I know what you're looking for in a candidate. Here's how I can address all those issues.
Well, we people are very, not lazy, but efficient thinkers. So if somebody gives us 25 reasons, like, oh, I guess these 25 reasons are true. It makes it much easier to process and to think. Of course, you have to be likable and all the other stuff,
Right.
but it makes it
Right.
much easier to make a decision because it's so difficult. How many things can you have in your head? 7 things you can
Yeah.
let's this guy or this guy, okay, but they do it in their head, but you write it down. So
Yeah.
I needed that one a long time ago.
And what I do during that time is I put Post-it notes on these articles that I send.
Yeah.
Right after I have an interview, I'll send an article I had published in one of the professional journals, and the Post-it note, that's my Trojan horse. My Post-it note says, "Hello, Mr. Hiring Manager. Here's an article, a recent article I thought you'd find of interest in my name." I don't care if he reads that article. I care that he sees who it's from. Why? Because I've already established likability, familiarity, trust, rapport through the interview cycle, through the pre-engagement phase, the direct engagement phase. Now I'm in the post-engagement phase. So I don't care if he reads the article. He'd probably bored to tears, but I want him to see the Post-it note to see who it's from. Then I did it a week later with a case history. I said, I know you talked about a case history during our interview. Here's one that sounds just similar to the one you had that I just finished with my employer. Don't care if he reads it. I want him to see it was from me, because what I'm doing, I'm building the repetition. Donn LeVie, Donn LeVie, Donn LeVie, Donn LeVie, qualified, high value, high value.
Yeah, you can do this with all. If you're getting hired or you're in the selling process, do the same thing.
Exactly.
Add value. If it's all the better if it surprises your clients, right?
Yes, exactly. And that last Post-it note on the 25 ways I add value, that last Post-it says, "Dear hiring manager, I'm ready to get started now. Let's talk." That's a little bold, but who's going to look out for your success if not you?
That's true. Which one of these 25 would you like to address first?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you the 26 when you hire me.
There you go. That's
a good one. So when do we convert? The C, or did I go too far? Let's see. In your epic.
C, sorry. Epic. Engage, position, influence.
Yeah.
And you do that influence with those documents that I outline in my books, my Confessions of a Hiring Manager 2.0, and in Strategic Career Engagement. All those they're all outlined there. And the next thing that I would do is on the convert. That's where I give them that document. Let's talk now. Here's the 25 ways. That's the document that puts them over the top and says, yes, I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to hire. I'm ready to contract.
So people are much too laid back during the hiring process or the selling process.
Yeah, they do. They wait back and they wait for the phone to ring, or they wait for the email. And it's like, that's fine. You guys do that. I'm going to keep promoting my branded value and expertise, my influencer, my thought leadership, so that I get the nod. Just like Dorothy and the scarecrow and the cowardly lion and the tin man.
Yeah.
I'm helping them get something they want better than anyone else.
Well, you talked about that, but I couldn't remember that because I watched it when I was a child. So could you explain it a little bit about what happened? We all know the story.
Oh, for the Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz, yeah. Or maybe the Jackson edition.
Yeah,
with
Dorothy and the scarecrow. Dorothy was hit in the head from a tornado, storm damage from a tornado, so she was unconscious. And this movie was about her dream, where some of the farm workers on her aunt and uncle's farm showed up in the dream as these weird characters, the cowardly lion, the scarecrow, and the tin man. And she has a nemesis in her dream who was also one of her neighbors, who was trying to get her dog, take her dog away from her. But in this dream, that neighbor turns out to be the Wicked Witch of the West. And Dorothy ends up in this imaginary land, the land of Oz. And she's at the front door of the gates to the Emerald City, and they want to get in to see the wizard because they heard the wizard could help them get back home. Of course, this is all in her dream. And the gatekeeper said, no one gets in to see the wizard, nobody but know how. And then he recognized she had the ruby slippers, which were something that the wizard valued, because the gatekeeper, you can see the parallels in business here, I think. because the gatekeeper recognized Dorothy had something of value that the wizard wanted. He let them in. Now, the wizard wouldn't grant their wishes until they could guarantee that they could get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. So they went through all kinds of tribulations and trials and ordeals, but eventually they got her broomstick. And the question I ask in my programs is, why did the wizard grant them their wishes? And it's, again, aligns with business because they helped him get something he wanted or needed better than anyone else. What did he want? He wanted that broomstick. And therefore, they got it for him, and that's why he granted their wishes. You do that with a decision maker, you help them get what they want better than anyone else, your wishes will be granted.
Yeah, and I think this is a powerful message also in this Corona crisis. Don't get scared and see what other people can do for you or how they can help you, but reach out and help each other.
It's
Look
all,
how what you can do for the other people. So how can people reach you? So
they can send me, they can go to my website. It's Donn LeVie Jr. Strategies, but it's DONNLEVIE strategies.com.
This is for the people listening, but of course I'll supply the links because there's also a webinar that they can go to, and they can also learn more about you and also about your speaking engagement. Maybe also through Zoom or something else, because right now we are in the crisis.
Yeah.
But
I know.
It's a fun way, and otherwise we can read your books. They're coming out. You already have a couple of books, but the new ones are coming out in 2021.
Yep. Confessions of a Hiring Manager came out in 2012. And the Strategic Career Engagement came out in 2016. Both were award winners for the International Book Award for Business.
Nice.
And the Global eBook Award, gold medal winner and silver medal winner.
You can be proud of that one. And the books that are coming are, about that leadership position and how to gain, you're raising in a corporation, how to keep the grips. How to keep grips on things.
It's exactly right, Alex. And the thing that I teach, as I mentioned earlier, I don't teach people how to be leaders. I make leaders better.
Yeah.
By teaching them these advanced techniques in behavioral, personal behavior and personality differences and communication skills that are ethical and moral for good purposes. Because con artists use the same type of tools in their vices.
Yeah, and just short note, you're also a fraud specialist. I read, so you know all about the con artists.
Yep.
So I love the caveat that you said. It's only the moral and the just can use these powers because they are very powerful. So Donn LeVie, have to say it French-like.
Oui, oui.
I love this. I love this conversation. I love your positivity. All the way from Austin. And for people who don't know, Austin is the best city in the USFA.
It is great job opportunities here. It's amazing.
Also, Elon Musk is going there with his factory, so it's bad for you with all the traffic that's coming your way. But I love it. So thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you, Alex. I'd love to do it again sometime. Thank you.